It was my friend Elliot's birthday. He's a tech entrepreneur and he travels a lot, so we were excited to catch up over drinks. And when I asked how he's doing, I was struck by his response. He says, "I feel like we got played. Like we thought we were building technology to change the world, and in the end, everything became about selling ads." His comment echoed a collective frustration with the internet, like hopeful ambition in the early days to this like anxious disillusionment. Where do we go from here? I believe that technology is the story of us. And when more of us see ourselves as active participants, as co-creators of that story, we begin to steer this narrative toward the future we actually want. So, I work as a seed investor in tech startups. And currently, we are not in the future we want. Instead, we are here. Hacks, fake news, bias in algorithms, a little political meddling. How did we get here? In 2015, The Atlantic published an article entitled "Americans Fear Technology More Than Death." It says, and I'm paraphrasing, people fear things that they depend on but don't have any control over, and that is a perfect definition of technology. If fear were enough to keep us safe, we'd already be out of the woods. We reclaim the future when we reevaluate three things about tech: how we use it, how companies build it, and how well we all understand it. First, regular people have power. Internet companies depend on capturing our attention to succeed. That's why startups are plugging away in co-working spaces, crunching data and tweaking product features. They're trying to anticipate what you want, what you will use and be excited about. They're listening for your voice, and they will answer to it when they hear it loudly enough. Technology thrives on our willingness to embrace new things, like when we try that new app and share it with friends. But when that app reaches 1 billion users, things shift. The dynamic becomes more interdependent. Take a real example, email. As recently as 1996, only 1 in 10 Americans actually used email. Soon, it was everywhere. You couldn't avoid using email. So while users have power, email or any other technology is shaped by tech companies' choices too. Choices that often tie back to the way these companies are built. In 2011, McKinsey published an article that said that big data was the next frontier of innovation. At the time, I owned a commercial real estate business, and our clients were often seed-stage tech startups. They landed their first funding from professional investors. And I love helping startups grow, but I had this nagging fear, my own tech fear. And it was that we were sharing unprecedented access to our lives with the open internet without guardrails. I wanted to see startups design the future with a sense of accountability to human interests too. So, in 2015, I transitioned to working as a seed investor in tech startups myself. Then this happened. The tech industry was a swirl of controversy. I watched article headlines like "1 billion accounts compromised in the biggest data breach in history," and "artificial intelligence is showing gender bias," and "data scandals raise ethical questions." We needed a reboot. I focused on finding outstanding startups that were also ahead of the curve in addressing some of these tech industry side effects. I worked with one of the first CEOs to volunteer for something called an algorithmic audit. It just means that he had a trusted authority outside the company come check out the formula behind his product. It's a safeguard to make sure that his algorithm is fair to customers. I've seen startups working to give anyone the ability to control a secure record of their own personal data online to share on their own terms. I even interviewed a media startup that uses science fiction scenarios to help leaders think about possible future outcomes. What they all have in common is that they are giving us the ability to better see our blind spots. Now, even with the best intentions, startups cannot do this alone. If the tech industry is changing our world, we deserve a broader range of perspectives to get it right. The next wave of innovation is always coming. Is this scary? Or is it exciting? For me, it depends on whether it's happening to us or if we are part of it. Which brings me to a third factor shaping tech, how well we all understand it. Now, not everybody needs to launch a startup or work in venture capital to help determine the future of technology. You never have to write a single line of code to have a voice. Because as Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own folding chair. Industries change radically when people get interested in what's behind the product. Look what happened in the food industry. Consumers got more interested in what was in ingredients, and things shifted. Restaurants started having locally sourced foods. Fast food chains started having a salad on the menu. Brands were forced to adapt. And the same can be true with technology. So, my friend Elliot, he spoke in the past tense. We got played, he said, like we'd arrived at game over. But as I see it, too many of us have yet to have a turn at the bat. We're just getting started. And we all have a lot more to contribute. Thank you.